Yeah, which won the national, and he encouraged me to go to the races with him quite a bit. I think I went to Hexham, Redcar, and all those other lovely places up there.
Yeah. There's lots up here: Thirsk, Ripon, Pontefract,
went to Ripon.
Catterick.
Yep.
It's a Sedgefield. It's a real horse racing area around here.
Yes, I remember going to Sedgefield. I remember there's a sign saying racecourse in between two slag heaps, from my memory.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
that dates it.
Anyway, yeah, it is.
So, just to put things in context, I'm writing a piece for Legal Business, which will look at the commercial bar, leading cases, leading practitioners, and the key issues in the last 12 months. So obviously it's quite a broad sweep. And I should say at the outset, that before I ask you any questions, that should I wish to quote you, I will, of course, send you any quotes in advance so that you can amend or redact them accordingly. So please feel free to speak, because nothing will appear without your say-so in print.
Okay, and is the idea, and how much would you be quoting me or not? I mean, is the idea that you would or wouldn't? I mean, are you going to be using sorry.
I will be using snippets from lots of people. Is the harsh reality. So I would guess in total,
that's okay, yeah.
To give you an idea, probably about 25 people in total, and those would be a mixture of silks, one or two bar clerks, and people I've spoken to, Alan Overy and Linklaters and Clifford Chance and wherever, who sort of got various observations about different sets they use, about trends, about some of the sort of some what I call side issues, but important one, use of increased use of litigation funding, trends in arbitration. So it's multi-themed.
Right.
Trying to give you a flavour of how it's going to look in practice. But it would be helpful if you could give me, from your perspective, current changes at the commercial bar, let's say, compared with 5 years ago. And I'm not necessarily just talking about the workload and the type of case, but things like the Jackson reforms and so on, and the general desire to do things more efficiently at less cost and settle cases where appropriate and so on. What would you identify as the key current themes, and how is it affecting your practice?
The key current themes, a bit difficult to say, really. I mean, I think that banking and financial litigation is still one of the main aspects of the commercial bar. Certainly, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, we're obviously a bit skewed by our experience, but I would say that banking and finance litigation is still going on pretty full steam ahead. You've seen lots of the claims against the
long post-Lehman's tail, as it were.
I don't think it's a tail, really. I think that the credit crunch opened the floodgates a bit for banking and finance litigation. I think that the regulatory investigation into the banks, which the banks couldn't settle out the reports in the same way that they settle out cases, has meant that the outside world has had a good look under the bonnet, as you were, behind some of these institutions, and the judges have seen various things that I think have surprised them. And I think there's a greater sort of, I think banks are always very, very skillful at settling out embarrassing cases and sort of calibrating the jurisprudence, and I think that ability to control things has seriously reduced, and I think that the burgeoning of the boutique firms with good quality people from the city firms who are not conflicted out has just meant that the whole banking and finance litigation world is much more sort of exuberant than it was certainly before the credit crunch, certainly 10 years ago, and I think even probably 5 years ago, because I think 5 years ago it was in its infancy a bit. People were still feeling their way, and the banks tended to wave around the sort of Springwell decision as being the sort of kiss of death that they claimed against them. And I think things have moved on, really. You only have to look at the rights issue, some of the big group actions, but also I just think generally, I think that the sort of quality of the practitioners there has probably improved. I think that obviously the banks always had very good people acting for them, but I think the claimant side has got better people acting for it now. As a result, I think in large measure of these boutique firms, to be honest. So you've got ex-partners from some of the big city firms who are now able to do some of these finance cases, against the institutions, whereas before it was all left to.
So the signatures of this world.
Exactly. Signatures and Enios. Signature, Enio, for example, would be a good example. So some good people there. Whereas obviously in the old days, very often people want to make claims against the institutions. They would struggle to get, sort of hard-hitting solicitors firm to act for them, even if they could afford it. Because obviously with the panels and with the conflicts, many solicitors firms that did transactional work just wouldn't. I think that's quite a big change, really, because I just think that has opened up much more litigation. As other bits have died a bit. Shipping has died a bit of a death, and shops have died a bit of a death. And I think because of changes, technology, consolidation, lots of the key issues were litigated to death in the insurance market, 15 years or so ago. And certainly my experience of those worlds is that they are not generating the same amount of litigation as they used to, whereas the banking and finance, touch wood, seems still to keep going. And also, of course, there are always going to be disputes about money. There are always going to be disputes about whether the lending and structured finance arrangements were fair and reasonable or a bit sharp. The scope for dispute about that, I think, is ever present, really. I think.
Two other aspects, just to ask you on that theme of the drivers and or new participants or new phenomena. One is the growth of the US firms in London broadening their practice and the expansion of firms like Quinn Emanuel, who are obviously litigation specialists, but on a
you're absolutely right. I think both those things are also drivers of this. I think the ability of the US firms to sort of, with their kind of jury trial class action experience, sort of being prepared to having a bit of a go at big institutions. I think they have added further impetus to this market. I completely agree.
And
I think it's sort of turbocharged it a bit, really. And it has. And in the old days, it was Snooks and Co from the West Country acting for the little old lady or the businessman who lost his shirt, and it was Herbert Smith or Freshfields for the bank. It wasn't a very fair fight, but I think that's all changed a bit. I think now.
And litigation funding and the impact of that.
That I think is an important development. I think it is a difficult. Area because I'm not sure that my own view is that the Jackson reforms aren't necessarily going to be the answer to costs. I'm not sure that disallowing the recovery of uplifts from under CFAs from the defendants was a very good idea, because that has really, if not seen the end of CFAs, it's obviously had a very sort of deleterious effect upon them.
Yes.
I'm not sure that damages-based agreements, certainly in their current form, the 100% ones, I'm just not sure that they are really quite tailored to fit the gap. In other words, I think that what starts off life as a sort of well-intentioned judicial attempt to make things a bit more affordable can sometimes have the opposite effect, as with so many sort of political changes.
Law of unintended consequences applying.
I think so. Yeah. I'm afraid. I just think that, and certainly I certainly think for sort of sole practitioners like barristers, I think these are quite difficult, quite sort of treacherous waters, really, because it's quite difficult for barristers to sort of take some of this risk onto their books. They're under increasing pressure to do so. There's no doubt that they're under, certainly for claimant work, they're under increasing pressure to do cases on a more sort of whatever the phrase is, it contingent or conditional, whatever it is. That they're under greater pressure, particularly as solicitors are doing things on that sort of basis. And then I think the barrister ends up being squeezed a bit, really. Doesn't often have much leverage in things, and then when push comes to shove, you often find that the uplifts come under pressure, really. You get clients saying, well, now it offers abounding, doesn't look so hairy and difficult, why don't you, agree to forego your uplift or whatever it is. It's quite difficult, really, I think, for sole practitioners, to sort of say, hang on a minute, really.
You mentioned at the outset the financial crisis obviously being a key driver of much of the banking and finance work in terms of litigation and continuing to do so. You took Silk coinciding with that crisis, not that was intentional or in any way relevant, but nevertheless it means that your entire time of Silk has